In January of 2018, 26-year-old Idaho woman Anki Kroi was accused of sleeping with an underage student. Kroi was an employee at Gunan High School, where she monitored the Idaho Digital Learning Academy lab and coached junior varsity boys basketball. She was arrested on the night of January the 5th of 2018 after the mother of a teen student learned that Kroi and her son had had intimate contact. Kroi denied the allegations at first, but later admitted to the police that she had intercourse with the teenager 6 times at her house and bought him alcohol twice. 2 months later, Kroi pleaded guilty to 2 counts of felony injury to a child and misdemeanor dispensing alcohol to a minor. 5 other charges initially brought against Kroi, including 3 felony counts of battery of a minor child, were dismissed as part of the plea agreement. During her sentencing hearing, Kroi apologized to the victim, his family, and the Gunan community and said that she was very ashamed. On June the 26th of 2018, she was handed a 10-year prison sentence and fined $3,000. The judge suspended the sentence and required Kroi to serve 90 days in Gunan County Jail and 4 years of supervised probation. She was also required to undergo offender treatment during her probation and will serve the full 10-year sentence if she violates the terms of her probation. Number 10. Richard Evans. A New York Police Department officer was arrested for allegedly driving under the influence in the Bronx on December the 8th of 2016. 44-year-old officer Richard Evans and his rookie partner were responding to a noise complaint between neighbors on Webster Avenue near East 203rd Street during their midnight shift. Before the officers even got to the location, the issue had already resolved itself. But one of the people involved in the complaint noticed the 2 officers were still sticking around. The resident walked up to the officers and asked them why they were still there, to which Evans decided to respond by barging into his apartment. He confronted the resident and other occupants and refused to leave for 30 minutes, according to an assistant district attorney. One of the occupants at the scene called 911 to report that Evans appeared to be intoxicated. The officer was filmed slurring his words and stumbling around. When a supervising sergeant arrived at the scene, Evans couldn't explain why he was still in the doorway. Evans subsequently drove back to the 52nd Precinct Station House in Norwood, where 2 NYPD sergeants and a captain found him unfit to perform his duties. As a result, he was stripped of his gun and badge. Amid the initial allegations, the Bronx District Attorney said in a statement that Evans's irresponsible behavior was dangerous to the community he swore to protect. The veteran police officer was indicted on 4 counts related to his drunk driving while on duty and 1 count of official misconduct. Evans was arraigned in January of 2017, but it never became clear if he was convicted of the charges. Number 9. Cayo Ramos. A special education teacher was facing jail time for allegedly having been intimate with 2 of her students from December of 2016 to April of 2017. Cayo Ramos from Milford, Connecticut, was first arrested after one of the victims, aged 18, told police he had had intercourse with the teacher. Following her arrest, Ramos remained free on bond, submitted a letter of resignation from her position at Central High School in Bridgeport, and was placed on administrative leave on June the 9th of 2017. She told police that she'd been intimate with the student in her car a handful of times. A second special education student later told police that he also had intercourse with Ramos twice, one time in her car in the parking lot and another in a restaurant. The student claimed to investigators that his teacher sent him a text message that said it was the best intercourse she'd ever had. On June the 22nd, Ramos was pulled over in Waterford after a cop spotted her talking on a cell phone. Officers later determined that Ramos's passenger was one of her alleged victims in her pending assault case, despite an order of protection barring her from having contact with the teen. 5 months later, Ramos pleaded no contest to assaulting 2 special education students and violating a protective order. On January the 25th of 2019, she was sentenced to 10 years, suspended after serving 5 years in prison, and followed by 10 years of probation. He also ordered her to register as an offender. Number 8. Chris Beard. Local law enforcement in Austin, Texas received an urgent disturbance call at around 12:15 a.m. on December the 12th of 2022. When police arrived at the residence, 38-year-old Randy True told police that her fiancé, Chris Beard, had choked her, threw her off the bed and bit her. True also told police that she'd been arguing with the 49-year-old man for days regarding their relationship. In addition, she claimed that a day earlier, Beard had slapped her glasses from her face after she had accidentally broken his glasses. According to the affidavit, True said, "He just snapped on me and became super violent." Beard in turn told police that he had audio recordings showing he wasn't the primary aggressor, but declined to share them with the officers. He was booked into the Travis County Jail shortly after 4 a.m. on charges of third-degree felony assault on a family or household member. His bond was set at $10,000, and he was ordered to remain 200 yards away from the victim. That evening, Beard, who was the University of Texas men's head basketball coach, was suspended indefinitely. True later issued a public statement denying telling police that Beard choked her. Additionally, she said she never intended for him to be arrested or prosecuted. Nevertheless, the university fired him in January of 2023, telling his attorney he was unfit for the position while he faces a felony charge. The Travis County District Attorney's Office later dropped all charges against Chris Beard. On February the 15th of 2023, the district attorney said that his agency was taking all domestic abuse cases seriously, but decided they didn't have sufficient evidence to pursue a conviction. Number 7. Justin Augustine. At around 7:30 p.m. on October the 27th of 2018, Officer Justin Augustine from the Piqua Police Department in Ohio crashed his cruiser into a flatbed trailer loaded with concrete barriers. The 38-year-old initially refused to take a drug and alcohol test. He later admitted to crashing the cruiser while he was trying to urinate. According to a police report, significant damage was found on the passenger side and rear quarter panels of the police vehicle. The report further stated that Augustine was slurring his speech and had bloodshot eyes. He was allegedly inebriated while on duty and was brought back to the police station. A body camera captured him being confrontational and uncooperative with his colleagues. When asked if he had a lot to drink, he replied in the affirmative. He was arrested and charged with operating a vehicle under the influence. Days later, he resigned while an internal investigation was underway. On the same day, he was additionally charged with felony improper handling of a firearm in a motor vehicle, misdemeanor operating a vehicle impaired, and operating a vehicle without being in reasonable control. On December the 5th of 2018, Augustine pleaded guilty to misdemeanor possession of a weapon while intoxicated and failure to maintain physical control. The man had other charges dismissed as part of a deal he made. He was fined $300 and given a jail term of 180 days with all but 3 days suspended. The remaining 3 days were eligible for dismissal provided that Augustine completed a weekend education program and 1 year of community control. Number 6. Lita Carter. In the wake of a basketball game at a high school in Fairland, Indiana on July the 23rd of 2023, a coach was arrested on 2 felony charges. The game was between the Cincinnati Indians Elite and the DSP Heat of Owensboro, Kentucky. It was part of a tournament held at Triton Central High School, organized by Indiana U.S. Amateur Basketball. According to court documents, the game ended prematurely due to rough play committed by the Indian Elite players. Subsequently, Cincinnati Indians Elite girls basketball team coach Lita Carter allegedly came up behind the referee and pinned her arms at her side, allowing Carter's 15-year-old son to run up and strike the referee in the face. The 42-year-old coach reportedly continued pinning the referee's arms while her son continued the onslaught. The victim was unable to defend herself. The court documents further stated that Carter and her players attacked and chased the basketball official around the court and even ripped her wig off at one point, causing part of her natural hair to also be ripped from her scalp. Carter told Fox 19 that the female referee swung at her and that was the reason why her players came to her defense. After a warrant was issued out of Shelby County Circuit Court, Carter was arrested on August the 11th in Cincinnati. She was held in custody on felony charges of criminal confinement and battery. Subsequent information indicated that she was going to be extradited from Ohio to Indiana. Number 5. Christen Davenport. 27-year-old Christen Davenport, who was a teacher at Northside High School in Columbus, Georgia, was accused of assaulting a teen student in April of 2019. Her Facebook page stated that she'd been a science teacher at the aforementioned school since August of 2016, following an anonymous report which prompted an investigation by the Columbus Police Department. Davenport was arrested on April the 25th of 2019. The details of the alleged crime hadn't been made public, but records indicated that it transpired on April the 10th of 2019. She was booked into the Muskogee County Jail. According to jail records, Christen Davenport was charged with 3 counts of sexual assault by persons with supervisory or disciplinary authority. In her first court appearance, Davenport pleaded not guilty. She was released on a $3,000 bond for each of the 3 counts. Despite the case making national headlines at the time of her arrest, it was never published what form of punishment Davenport received, if any. Number 4. Luann de Lesseps. In Palm Beach, Florida, local police were called to the Colony Hotel at approximately 11:18 p.m. on December the 23rd of 2017. Dispatcher received a report of unwanted people in a hotel room. Responding officers found 2 women in the room who were smelling of alcohol, slurring their speech, and appearing to be highly intoxicated. One of them was identified as 52-year-old Luann de Lesseps, who was a cast member of the reality television show The Real Housewives of New York City. The other woman was her friend, Julie Olson. After de Lesseps was placed under arrest, handcuffed, and put in the back seat of the police cruiser, she reportedly told police, "Don't touch me, I'm gonna kill you." She then slipped one hand out of her handcuffs and tried to open the door to the police cruiser. She also claimed she'd done nothing wrong and demanded to be let out of the vehicle. According to an arrest report, de Lesseps resisted arrest, hit an officer in the face with a door, and pushed officers away. She was facing charges of disorderly intoxication, resisting arrest with violence, and trespassing. In July of 2018, she pleaded guilty to battery, trespassing, and disorderly intoxication. As part of a plea deal she'd taken, she was given 1-year probation in lieu of jail time. She was also required to perform 50 hours of community service, attend 2 AA meetings per week, not consume alcohol or illegal drugs, and attend a victim impact class organized by Mothers Against Drunk Driving. Additionally, de Lesseps was ordered to write an apology letter to Deputy Stephen O'Leary. After violating the terms of her probations, she appeared in court again on May the 23rd of 2019. The woman had failed an alcohol test and wasn't participating in her court-mandated counseling and AA sessions. Fortunately for her, her time in custody was brief. She was released after an hour, at which point she was given new guidelines for her probation. She was ordered to participate in weekly counseling calls with her treating psychiatrist, as well as monthly in-person sessions, take an abuse medication as prescribed by her doctor, and maintain her SoberLink breathalyzer monitoring device as instructed by her probation officer. Number 3. Operation Bad Apple. 29 Florida men and women were charged in Operation Bad Apple, a 10-month investigation into a prescription fraud ring that put thousands of oxycodone pills on the street. The operation began in March of 2012 when the Sheriff's Pharmaceutical Diversion Unit learned that dozens of fraudulent prescriptions of oxycodone from Luxor Industries Physicians Group in North Fort Myers were being filled at Apple Pharmacy located on Indiana Avenue in Englewood from June of 2011 to August of 2011. Englewood residents anonymously notified law enforcement of suspicious activity near the private business, according to Sarasota County Sheriff Tom Knight. Knight also said that detectives believed that prescriptions had been stolen from the unlicensed pain clinic that would later be closed by the authorities in July of 2012. During the 2-month span, the 29 people charged allegedly presented 67 nearly identical prescriptions for oxycodone pills, often arriving together at the private pharmacy. More than 7,000 pills made it to the streets, and more than $40,000 in cash was transferred. Knight said that an investigation into the pharmacy's involvement was underway. The 29 suspects, who were between the ages of 21 and 53, were from different counties, namely Manatee, Sarasota, Charlotte, and DeSoto. They were charged with obtaining a controlled substance through fraud and trafficking oxycodone. At the end of January of 2013, 23 of the suspects were arrested, 5 were already in the Sarasota County Jail, and 1 was wanted on outstanding warrants. The Bradenton Herald reported that their bonds ranged from $30,000 to more than $200,000, while some were being held without bond entirely. Number 2. Sharon Ray and Philip Clark. Late on October the 10th of 2018, an English couple forced their way into a Bridlington home and attacked the 69-year-old homeowner with a 2-foot iron bar. Hull Crown Court heard that the victim already knew one of the attackers, 49-year-old Sharon Ray. The man had previously lent money to Ray for her mortgage. According to the prosecutor, shortly after paying him back, she and her boyfriend, 52-year-old Philip Clark, targeted the pensioner. On the evening in question, Ray knocked on the man's door and asked to be let in. When he opened the door, Clark, whose face was covered, entered and started striking the man with the bar repeatedly. When Clark attempted to take the man's wallet from his pocket, the man punched him, knocking him to the floor. It was then that the victim managed to get the upper hand, getting hold of Clark's trainers. Clark subsequently crawled away shoeless, escaping with Ray. After the victim called 911, the couple were arrested. The attack left the victim with bruising across his face and body. The whole experience had been so frightening to him that he decided he was less vulnerable living in his car in Bridlington town center than in his own home. He described Ray and Clark as bad apples in his victim impact statement, which was later read out to the court. The pair were found guilty of assault occasioning actual bodily harm, attempted burglary, and use of a weapon. In January of 2020, they were both sentenced to 3 years behind bars. Ray and Clark were ordered to serve up to half of their sentence in custody and the other half on license in the community supervised by probation. If they'd commit any crimes while on license, they would be recalled to prison. Our previous video on when being a good Samaritan is lined up for you after number 1, if you'd like to see that one as well. Number 1. Jennifer Fitcher. In April of 2014, 29-year-old Florida woman Jennifer Fitcher was arrested by Lakeland police after she reportedly admitted to having had intercourse with a male teen student. Since August of 2011, Fitcher had worked as an English teacher at Central Florida Aerospace Academy, which was an extension of Kathleen High School. According to police, the teen's mother became suspicious when her son wasn't home at 5 a.m. on January the 27th of 2014. Her son apparently lied about his whereabouts, so she started reviewing his text messages and discovered conversations between him and Fitcher. The mother subsequently informed police of the relationship and agreed to make a controlled, recorded phone call to Fitcher for investigators. During their conversation, Fitcher claimed that she became pregnant with the teen's child and had an abortion. Fitcher also told her that she was in love with the student and allegedly had intercourse with him 20 to 30 times. Investigators later learned that Fitcher had also been intimate with 2 other male students. She purportedly preyed on her teenage students, whom she met at parties, off-campus locations, and even her own apartment for intercourse. After her arrest, she was fired by the Polk County School Board on April the 22nd, 2014. In March of 2015, Fitcher pleaded guilty to 37 counts of intimate contact with a minor. During her sentence hearing on July the 2nd, she apologized, saying, "I wish I could take it back." But victims and their family members say that Fitcher had shattered their lives. The judge called her a predator before sentencing her to 22 years behind bars. She was also convicted in Hillsborough County for being intimate with some of the same students in that jurisdiction. Fitcher took a plea deal and 2 of the 3 charges were dropped. In April of 2017, she was sentenced to 3 years, which would run concurrently with her 22-year sentence.
Number 10. Rebecca Forkey. On March the 5th of 2013, Rebecca Forkey, an aspiring professional bodybuilder, was on her way to the gym when her life was changed forever by a catastrophic accident on the road. A good Samaritan who worked for a car dealership was attempting to tail a driver under the influence of prescription drugs. They had already called 911 and were advised by the dispatcher not to follow, but the Samaritan went against the advice and continued shadowing the vehicle for 3 minutes whilst holding their cell phone. The impaired driver, who was driving a Toyota Highlander, suddenly veered towards the Samaritan's vehicle. Instinctively, the Samaritans swerved their vehicle to the right, causing them to unintentionally force Forky's Jeep off the road. Forky and her Jeep rolled 6 times before coming to a stop, with the vehicle on its back. Forky suffered a cracked vertebra, both her lungs were punctured, her jaw was broken, and her diaphragm was crushed. Miraculously, she survived, but was made paraplegic by the accident. She is now wheelchair-bound, but undergoes physical therapy with the goal of one day gaining back the full use and mobility of her arms. The dealership employee was not charged criminally in the case, whilst the impaired driver served a prison term. For her injuries and distress, Forky settled a lawsuit with the dealership for $24 million. Number 9. Johnny Bobbit and Kate McClure. Johnny Bobbit and Kate McClure concocted a scam in 2017 on the popular crowdfunding site GoFundMe, which stole hundreds of thousands of dollars from 14,000 unsuspecting Good Samaritans. At the time, Bobbit was a homeless veteran. McClure fabricated a story that Bobbit had given her his last $20 when she became stranded on a freeway in Philadelphia. She created a crowdfunding campaign featuring the story to take advantage of the public's goodwill. When the campaign raised $1,500, McClure and her boyfriend informed Bobbit about the campaign. Bobbit then became involved in the scheme. A month later, after setting up Bobbit with a bank account, McClure deposited $25,000 into it. The campaign continued to gain momentum and eventually reached about $400,000 in public donations. It all came crashing down, however, when the parties had a disagreement. Bobbit filed a lawsuit against McClure and her partner for allegedly keeping most of the money that was supposed to come to him. This caused an investigation into the campaign, which eventually exposed the masterminds as frauds. They faced charges of second-degree theft by deception and conspiracy to commit theft by deception. In December of 2017, after the story came to light, GoFundMe issued refunds to all of the Samaritans who donated to the campaign. Number 8. Roger Gaer. Roger Gaer was a British accountant turned anti-poaching hero, a true Samaritan. Gaer was a trained helicopter pilot working in Tanzania. In 2016, Gaer and his passenger, Nick Bester, were tracking down poachers who had recently slaughtered an elephant for its ivory. They successfully found the criminals, but they retaliated, shooting at Gaer's helicopter with AK-47s. Gaer was seriously injured whilst taking gunfire from below, with bullets striking his arm and face. The helicopter was shot down from the sky and crashed into the African bush. Bester broke his back during the crash, but was still able to free Gaer from the wreckage and bandage his wounds. Bester then collapsed himself as he waited for aid to arrive. It was too late for Gaer, and he lost consciousness shortly before medics arrived. CPR was performed for half an hour, but he couldn't be revived. Number 7. Hassan Ascari. Hassan Ascari was riding a train in Brooklyn, New York one night when he witnessed a gang of 10 thugs harassing a young Jewish couple for replying "Happy Hanukkah" to somebody who had wished them a Merry Christmas. Ascari, only 140 pounds and 5'7" tall, pushed one of the thugs after fearing for the couple's safety. The gang jumped on Ascari, but it gave the couple the opportunity to pull the subway's emergency brake and get help. Ascari was left with 2 black eyes and his nose was hurt in the incident. But he never got medical attention as he couldn't afford it, even though he worked 2 jobs. Number 6. Hugo Alfredo Telcas. Homeless Guatemalan immigrant Hugo Alfredo Telcas was walking in Queens, New York, when he spotted a woman being threatened by a man with a knife. He ran over to help and fought with the attacker, but the Good Samaritan was stabbed several times. The woman managed to escape and the attacker also fled the scene. Hugo lay in the street for over an hour, slowly bleeding out, and not one of over 20 passers-by stopped to help him. One pedestrian was even spotted taking a photo of Hugo with their cell phone. By the time a 911 call was made and firefighters attended the scene, Hugo was already dead. Number 5. Ashley Ryan Burrows. Ashley Burrows was traveling on Interstate 664 in Virginia when he came across a car accident and decided he would help. Abigail Tolackson had just crashed her 2015 Chrysler sedan into a wall and the vehicle had flipped. Burrows pulled his truck over in the lane of the accident to attend to Tolackson Another car, however, then plowed into Burrows' truck, flipping it over and causing it to land on him. He suffered life-threatening injuries and died in the hospital. Police say that Telcas was not injured during the incident. Number 4. Samaritan shot during attempted snow rescue. In January of 2016, a Good Samaritan was shot and killed during his attempt to help someone whose vehicle had gotten stuck in the snow. The scene unfolded in North Carolina, and witnesses described a vehicle sliding off the road and into the deep snow. A group of passerbys gathered to help. Reportedly, one of them mentioned calling the police, as they believed something was wrong with the man inside. He heard the conversation and jumped out of the car, pistol in hand. The group dispersed and started running, but the suspect opened fire, downing one of the Samaritans. He then walked over and fired multiple shots into the victim, killing him before returning to his car. A special tactics unit attended the scene and ordered the suspect out of his car, which was still stuck in the snow. He refused to obey the commands but was eventually taken into custody. It's unclear what the motive was behind the shooting. Number 3. Saen Gunan, Thai cave rescue. In July of 2018, world headlines were dominated by the story of 12 young boys and their soccer coach, who'd become trapped in a water-filled cave in Thailand. Worldwide experts as well as Thai forces raced against the clock to perform a daring rescue mission. The mission succeeded and the whole group was rescued from the cave. However, there was one casualty. A Good Samaritan named Saen Gunan, who was a part of the Thai Navy SEALs. Gunan was responsible for diving into the cave and delivering 3 oxygen tanks so that the trapped group could breathe. Gunan successfully completed his task. Unfortunately, on his way out of the cave system, he lost consciousness, and his diving partner was unable to revive him with CPR. Gunan, who was 38 years old at the time of his death, was celebrated as a hero. Number 2. Je Singh. In August of 2020, 3 children were playing in a California river when they began to struggle against the current. 29-year-old Je Singh, an Indian immigrant to the United States, had just completed his first day of truck driving school when he saw the girls struggling. He went straight into the water to rescue them. Unfortunately, he too was overpowered by the raging waters and reportedly went under very quickly. He never came back up and was found further down the river. 2 of the 3 children eventually managed to get to shore on their own. Number 1. Michael Augustin. 51-year-old Michael Augustin was tragically killed by a hit-and-run driver outside Kennedy Airport in January of 2021. Augustin had stopped to offer help to a stranded motorist on the side of the road. The motorist had parked his Dodge Caravan, an SUV, half on the shoulder and half blocking the far left-hand lane. Augustin pulled over in front of the SUV and offered his help to the motorist. They both stood together in front of the vehicle, examining the engine. While they stood there, a speeding Ford 350 driving down the same road slammed into the vehicle and the 2 men. Augustin took the brunt of the impact. Medics arrived at the scene and rushed him to hospital, but he couldn't be saved. The stranded motorist suffered a leg injury that wasn't life-threatening. The driver responsible for Michael's death fled from the scene, abandoning his vehicle. Later, the driver was revealed as 27-year-old Kevin Drawhorn. He was arrested and charged with negligent homicide, as well as leaving the scene of an accident, driving in excess of the speed limit, and driving without a license.
Thanks for watching. Would you rather be known as a snitch or a bad apple? Let us know in the comments section below.